So we just had the Diablo 4 showcase going much more in depth into most of the systems coming with the second expansion, the Lord of Hatred. And in my previous video, I did an overview of all of this, but I also mentioned I wanted to go much more in depth with all of these different systems because we actually got shown a ton of much more in-depth information, and there's a bunch of hidden things within this showcase. Now in this video, I want to go over the thing that I think is going to be much more important for build crafting in the endgame than a lot of people are giving credit for, and this is the Talisman system, which also introduces sets. Now, the Talisman system will be a new endgame progression and customization system that'll pretty heavily tie into whatever playstyle or build you're trying to create. And the Talisman is going to be located in our inventory. So down in our inventory tabs, there will be a new tab that houses the Talisman. Now, the Talisman is going to consist of 7 different slots. There's going to be a middle slot, which is where you put a new item called seals, and that will open up a different number of the outer slots, which are where charms go. And the charms that you put in the outer sockets are also where you're going to get the new set items, but these charms can actually be any rarity. We know at least up to unique. We don't know if you'll be able to have mythic ones. So you will have some options to make. It seems like you'll probably be choosing between set charms or unique charms. And there's already going to be a lot of customization into what rarities you're actually choosing to put in this. Now, I think we should start with the seal, which is the new item that goes in the middle. Now, the seal is going to give you some stats. It's going to give you some potential set bonuses that tie into or augment the charm sets you apply into the Talisman. And it's also going to determine how many of the outer sockets you can actually use. Now, we don't know if seals are going to have different rarities. The only one they showed us is legendary. And while they mentioned that the charms, which are the things in the outer sockets, can be any rarity, they didn't mention if seals can be any rarity. So the seal they showed was the Horadric seal of the honor. And this is an ancestral legendary seal, and this item unlocks 5 charm slots. So the outer sockets, this only unlocks 5, so you will be able to have ones that unlock all 6. This gives plus 45% total armor up to 47.5. We don't know if different seals will be able to have more stat rolls or if those are random stat rolls, but this one has at least 1 stat roll on it. Then it has 3 of these different sections that seem to be part of the seal and seem to be activated depending on what charm you equip in this. So the first one is cannot have more than 5 sockets, but can equip 2 unique charms. So presumably we're going to have seals that give some mix of how many sockets you have unlocked and how many unique charms you can have in it. We don't know if you'll be able to have, say, a seal with all 6 sockets unlocked and 2 or more unique charms able to be placed in them, or maybe if you want all 6 sockets, you can only have 1 unique charm or something like that. So we don't actually have a ton of information on how these seals actually work. But then it has 2 charm set sections that give you more bonuses if you're using sets in your outer charm sockets. And the first one is Charm Set Dark Pact, which is 5 to 9% damage increase. The second one is Charm Set Adapt Action, which is 5 to 9% damage reduction while moving. So it seems that on these seals, you'll just have these smaller set bonuses that may or may not specifically augment the charms you're getting, because in a recent dev Q&A, they did say that seals will have these set bonuses that kind of augment what the charm set bonuses are doing. So maybe this one is just a more basic one, or maybe we'll have other seals. The sets on the seal themselves will actually augment what the charm sets are doing. But that's pretty much all the information we have on the seals and what they're actually doing. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more information. I'm also super curious if these seals can have different rarities. That would be very interesting if you could get a set seal item that maybe you have to use certain set combinations of charms to activate the seal in the middle. Maybe you could have unique seals or something like that. So there's some good possibilities with seals themselves. And I do like that the middle thing that kind of activates all of the outer sockets actually has things on it that are unique and give different stats or effects as well. But then we have the main stars of the show, the charms. Now, like I mentioned, charms are the things in the outer sockets. You can have up to 6, depending on if your seal unlocks all 6. And these can be any rarity. Now, again, we don't know if they can be mythic. We know they can be anything up to unique at least. And we did only get a look at set charms, which is probably going to be the main thing. In fact, it seems that sets are going to give give a lot more interesting effects, but we didn't get to see any unique ones, so unique ones may also be pretty crazy. We just know that there are some really interesting stuff sets can do, because also within that dev Q&A, they did also mention that one of the charm sets for the druid allows you to have werebear companions instead of wolf companions. So it's a pretty massive change to that companion type, and my presumption is that because you're changing them into werebears, they will probably have like earth scaling or do earth damage or something like that, which is pretty interesting and may itself unlock a new companion druid build. So we know these things are going to have some pretty interesting effects on a lot of the charms. Now the charm set we got to take a look at is Of the Narrow Eye, and there are 5 different pieces of the set you can get and equip, and it does also seem like this has a 2 set, a 3 set, and a 5 set, because if you go and look at the footage of them equipping these charm items, as they equip enough of these to start to get the set bonuses, these items start glowing more and more. So they equip 2 of these set items, they have a little bit of glow on them, they equip another to get the 3 set, it has an even bigger glow, and then they equip all 5 and they have a much bigger glow that looks completed. So while we didn't get to see the 5 set bonus, this tier set does seem to actually have a 5 set. And we do know you won't be limited, so this has a 2 set bonus. If you went and got a seal that unlocked all of the outer sockets, so you had 6, you could equip the 2 set bonus of 3 different sets. So you can really mix and match what you want. You could use the 2 set of this narrow eye, go get another 2 set bonus, and then maybe equip like 2 unique charms or something. So there's going to be a lot of mix and matching, and based upon what we've heard and seen about these set bonuses and the effects they give, there's probably going to be some very interesting build creation possibilities based upon mixing and matching these different options. But we also get to take a look at the different roles or stats on these charms. So first off, we have Linta of the Narrow Eye. This gives +2 to Heartseeker. This can roll up to 3. So this is +2 skill rank, is generally a multiplicative increase. So that's actually a pretty good stat roll. Then it has an up to 47.5% crafting material drop rate increase, which is really interesting. A lot of the ones we actually got to see gave utility stats. So I'm wondering if these 2 top stats, which are on all of these set charms, are randomly rolled or if they're kind of set rolls on this item. And then next up, we had a Phoba of the Narrow Eye. This gave a +2 to rapid fire, could roll up to 3, and then an increase to your poison resistance. Not sure if these are randomly rolled or if each one of these different name set pieces will have their own set rolls on them. And then we got Fur of the Narrow Eye. This gave +3 to smoke grenade and a up to 47.5 increase to bonus experience. This also makes me wonder if when you unlock the Talisman on one character, do you get it on new characters? So you could potentially have a bunch of set items that give bonus experience that you then go just equip on like a new character and level up super quickly. But then we have a Malor of the Narrow Eye, which gives 3 to Invigorating Strike and another bonus to experience like the last one. And then finally, we have a Phoba of the Narrow Eye, which is +1 to Agility skills, can roll up to 2, which is really interesting because this is a +2 all skills of a category, which could be really good depending on your build. And then another increase to crafting material drop rate. So the actual affix rolls on these charms could also be pretty interesting depending on what they can actually roll. And then we also got to see the 2 and 3 set bonuses on this Narrow Eye set. Also keep in mind, as I went over, this does seem to have a 5 set bonus. So presumably the 5 set is going to be the most interesting and impactful part of the set, but we didn't get to see it. So when you cast a marksman basic skill, you gain a stack of Vengeance, which grants +6% increased movement speed and 12% increased damage for all of your marksman skills. Vengeance stacks up to 5 times and loses 1 stack every 4 seconds. So at max stacks of this, which they do fall off, you can't refresh the timer, so you probably won't always be max stacks, but at max stacks you get a 30% increase to movement speed and a 60% multiplicative increase to your damage. And while that is a pretty decent damage increase, this isn't something crazy like Diablo 3 sets or something where you're getting like tens of thousands of percent damage increase. 60% damage increase on stacks that fall off isn't that crazy, especially compared to a lot of other multiplicative increases we get on other pieces of gear and stuff, this actually is like a massive damage scaler. But then we have the 3 set. While you have Vengeance, you gain 1 Dark Shroud Shadow every 2 seconds. You also gain 25% damage reduction whenever you have at least 1 shadow, and knock back close enemies when you lose a shadow. So Dark Shroud is one of the rogue skills where there's these little shrouds that just travel around you. I'm pretty sure they block attacks, but this now gives you a way to consistently generate them pretty quickly. They give damage reduction, and essentially when they pop, they knock back close enemies. So the 2 set bonus was for a specific category or tag of skills for the movement speed and damage increases. Now the 3 set is actually tied around a specific skill itself, and you won't even need that specific skill because it'll just proc off the 2 set. And if I would have to guess, the 5 set is going to tie even more heavily into certain skills and probably give a much more substantial effect. And based upon what it seems they're trying to do with these sets, the 5 set bonus is probably some type of like gameplay changer or some type of unique effect that isn't just based upon like giving you a big damage increase. Now that's pretty much all of the specific information we got to see for the Talisman system, but this is going to give so many different options, especially with the developer kind of teasing us on being able to have werebear companions from one of the sets. It seems these sets are not only going to be stat increases, which all of these sets and seal items we've seen do have some affix rolls on them, but the sets themselves are going to have pretty interesting effects. Then we know we'll be able to have at least up to unique charms, which could also have pretty interesting effects on them. I'm wondering if there's going to be class specific uniques and maybe generic uniques, or how those are specifically going to work. But it is seeming like the Talisman is going to be a pretty significant part of creating builds now. Even just based upon this and how I could see a 5 set going of this narrow eye, this is probably going to be pretty heavily gameplay impacting on a build that can use all of this stuff. And maybe some of these sets are strong enough to where builds will actually be created around them. Like I mentioned, having werebear companions as a druid, if they scale, say, off Earth, which is generally what werebears do anyway, if you could scale it off of that, that itself could potentially create an entirely new build that we never had before, and that is just based off of one of the bonuses of a set item from your Talisman. That doesn't even include the new skill tree overhaul that could probably give a bunch of other options. That doesn't include all of the uniques or new aspects or aspect changes that could probably pretty heavily tie into that in some ways. So the mix of all of the new and changed stuff we're getting, especially with the Talisman added in, is I think going to just give so many new build possibilities that we've never had before, and pretty heavily change up any existing builds we've used in the past. So I think the Talisman is going to play a much bigger role than a lot of people were originally thinking. And after hearing and seeing some of the things possible with the system, it's definitely, I think, moved up a little bit on how excited I am for the Talisman specifically. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.